Welcome to DEFCON 3. I'm KT McFarland. One of the main elements of President Obama's strategy for degrading and defeating ISIS is a coalition of Arab partners to do the fighting on the ground. To discuss the prospects of this, joining me now is Andrew Tabler. He's the senior fellow at the Washington Institute and author of the book In the Lion's Den, an eyewitness account of Washington's battle with Syria. So let me ask you, Andrew, what do you think? Is this likely to happen? Will we be able to assemble a coalition, and will they be able to do the fighting?
I think we'll be able to assemble a coalition of countries to fight ISIS, including the Syrian opposition, which our Arab allies in particular are back in the region. How effective it'll be, it remains to be seen for a variety of reasons that have to do with not just ISIS, but the complexities of the Syrian civil war.
Well, that's the second point of President Obama's strategy. It's not just assembling a coalition, but it's also creating a rebel military in Syria, reliable, moderate Syrian rebels who we will assemble, train, equip, and then send out to fight ISIS in Syria. Is that just a bridge too far?
No, we've been actually working covertly with the Syrian opposition for a few years. It's kind of an open secret. And that's where the assistance is going to start from the new overt program. However, we'll have to wait and see how effective that will be. And that's where, there's a lot of question marks because moderates have suffered over the last year, particularly after President Obama walked back from the enforcing the red line about a year ago on the regime's use of chemical weapons.
Well, one of the countries that is talked about a lot as being part of this so-called coalition would be Saudi Arabia. Will we be able to put a training base in Saudi Arabia to train the Syrian rebels? Will Saudi Arabia supply any of its military to help in this, or will Saudi Arabia write a check? How much can we count on the Saudis to participate? Because in the past, they played both sides.
Yeah, it seems the Saudi state quite deeply, writing the checks, providing the bases, maybe even providing soldiers as well as military trainers and so on. We'll have to see. That would be something very new for Saudi Arabia. They usually prefer to throw money at a problem, but they're not going to be able to defeat ISIS or push back the regime of Bashar al-Assad and their Iranian sponsors without doing something more than they did in the past.
You know, if you look at the country after country, whether it's Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Syria, it seems like they play both sides. That on one hand, they're with us, but on the other hand, they're with our adversaries, or at least providing some kind of material support. What's the United States' role in what increasingly looks like a war, civil war, between Sunnis and Shiites throughout the region?
Yeah, well, Iran does quite a good job of backing up generally Shia forces, either the Iraqi government or the regime of Bashar al-Assad. And that's because they have a Quds force, the body that goes out and organizes these proxy militias. Arab countries don't have those. Because there's more than one Arab country. There's Saudi Arabia, there's Qatar, there's Kuwait, and so on. They all work at different purposes. What they want from the United States is an organizing role to help organize, in this case, the Syrian opposition inside of the country in order to displace ISIS and replace it, and also make sure that that area is not handed back over to Bashar al-Assad, its regime. So they want from us coordination and a lot more work on arming the Syrian rebels, and I think, at least it seems right now, that they're going to get it.
Andrew, one of the arguments, even President Obama has made this case, is that in the last couple of years we've been looking for the Syrian moderates to rely on, and yet at the same time the predominant force in the Syrian rebels are al-Qaeda. They're jihadists. They're sort of leaning towards radical jihad. They're sort of Muslim Brotherhood on steroids. Are we talking now about three groups in Syria, the Assad government, the moderate Syrian rebels, and then the Syrian rebels who are more affiliated with al-Qaeda?
Yes, so actually we're talking about four, because you have to add on to there the Kurds, which have declared autonomy for the eastern part of the country.
So yes, it's a very complicated picture. You know, the United States will not be backing jihadists; we'll be backing more moderate factions. The problem that we have is the most effective factions among the Sunni forces inside of Syria and the most motivated has been jihadists. We will see what happens after the U.S. gets involved, as well as presumably with an air campaign to degrade ISIS's capabilities, and the involvement of regional allies. And it's the beginning of a new phase of what afraid it's going to be a very long war.
Well, do you think we ultimately will have to put U.S. boots on the ground?
I suspect that we would need to put more boots on the ground in terms of trainers or advisors at some point. But a full-on invasion of the country, I don't think is likely. Absent a major terrorist attack, if there's a major terrorist attack, all bets are off.
All bets are off. Well, thank you very much for joining us and putting some sense into this very complicated debate. Andrew Tabler, Senior Fellow, the Washington Institute, and author of the book In the Lion's Den. That's it for DEF CON 3.